You're up!
I'm up. Alright, let's do this. I'm amped up. I'm emotional. I'm vibing here. This video is not a review, by the way. It's not structured like a review. It's not intended to be digested as a review by those trying to make a purchasing decision. It will, however, contain my thoughts, impressions, and feelings about Monster Hunter Wilds as an entertainment product, so in that way, and in only that way, it will rhyme with the concept of a review. But make no mistake, I'm here to talk to people who are already playing the game, not people wondering if they should play, and as such, chances are pretty good there'll be something in here that someone might consider a spoiler or whatever. So if you are concerned about that stuff, come back to this video later, I would suggest. So hi, hello again, I am Blunty, and pre-release of Monster Hunter Wilds, I've had a lot of videos pour out of myself, and a fistful of those videos have been attempts to break down, dismantle, expose, halt the unchallenged spread, and in some cases utterly and completely aggressively refute some prevailing ideas, disingenuous messaging, and frankly just malicious misinformation that has been spreading through ignorance or deliberate malice. And I don't care if you want to call me arrogant or police my tone when I talk about this. I'm quite used to people tone policing me, as a lot of autistic people are. Because like it or not, I was goddamn right, by the way. And I reserve the right to be as friggin' smug about that as I bloody well like. And I don't pussyfoot around or play politic or use coward words and weasel words just in case I made someone saying idiotic things feel like an idiot for saying the idiotic things. That's just not something I'm capable of. There's a reason the name Blunty stuck, and it's not because I have an edge of tactic into a surgical scalpel, is it? So, that's the vibe I'm coming from today, guys. And I was bloody right to say the things I said in those other videos, by the way, because a lot of the pre-release content and reviews, even stuff people had the utter bravery to call a review, was in fact demonstrably horse crap, full of lies, untruths, ignorance, and stupidity that helped bitter vitriolic hater baiters spread all kinds of stupid shit about this game. It is exactly how I claimed it was, and now the game is out, and I've played it for myself, I stand by all of it. So let's start there with those hot button topics. Things like the game being too easy, or too short, or lacking content, or the story structure being boring, or the game looking bad, or quote unquote like a PS3 game. Exhausted sigh. So, difficulty and length. When I made videos combating this pre-release idea spread by reviewers who clearly had no idea what they were dribbling on about, I started by talking about the typical refute of claims like this, like how they were confusing their own familiarity with the core concept of the series for a lack of immediate challenge through the story. You've played the series before, of course you're better at it now than you were. This is just don't be stupid. So let's start with the opening of the game to roll in the credits. And a reminder, the credits roll in Wilds after completing the low rank journey only, and frankly not even completing it really. It's entirely possible to not only do the bare minimum of required progression quests and roll credits and still have a not insignificant amount of content, amount of low rank quests and optional quests and side quests left to run. In my video about this, I tried to remind people what that experience was like in the previous games and how long it took, with hard evidence of my own past replays of both World and Rise, showing, not just telling, but showing how one of my own very casual and relaxed replays of World took me only 18 hours to roll credits, and a challenge mode gimmick run through Rise, that being a nude run without any armor at all ever, was burned down to credits in less than 6 hours. Compared to the supposed 15 hours being quoted for Wilds to quote-unquote complete the game, that some reviewers were waffling on about when they thought rolling credits was the end of the game, and using that to claim Wilds was light on content. And you bet your ass, I was right about this. Of course I was right about this. We all know. Anyone who's played Monster Hunter knows this is how it works. Anyone with a functioning memory, at least. Not only did the people who claim or present this low-rank journey as a representative journey of the amount of content that the game has on offer, embarrassed themselves by just how ignorant they were being about this series and this specific game even. Such a bad job at being a reviewer and presenting the truth of the game. Such lousy and incompetent reviewers to allow this idea to spread unchallenged out there off the back of their own published reviews. But my own journey through low rank to roll credits was significantly longer than either of the previous releases. I rolled credits after fully 24 hours of game time. I literally just saw someone leave a comment on the video I last talked about this saying, oh, I'm 30 hours in and I'm still not done. And I wasn't even grinding out every last possible side quest and challenge or trophy chasing or whatever. I was just playing quite normally. And indeed, I still have a fair pile of low rank content, optional quests, and NPC side quests to clean up. Nor was I doing any special challenge rules to make it harder for myself. I wasn't running nude, I wasn't randomizing my weapons every hunt, nothing like that. The kinds of things I spoke about in my video about making the early game deliberately harder for veterans if that's what they wanted. The only thing I did different to a pure, casual, organic playthrough was use my fashion first rule set. Again, something else I spoke of in that other video if you want to know more details about that. But basically, upon each new monster encountered, I'd not move on from it until I had crafted its full armor set and its weapon. If it had a charge blade, my chosen weapon for my first playthrough, otherwise I'd just use the iron one. Then I'd use that set to beat the next monster, and so on and so on. It's a very simple rule, and one which exposed yet another lie that had been spreading, by the way. The idea that you are so showered with floods of materials in this game, and quest rewards are so generous that you only had to fight each monster once to craft its whole set. That wasn't true. That wasn't true for a single monster I fought for my whole journey. A couple did only need 2 hunts. Most needed 3 or 5 hunts. Which, for the record, is directly in line with the experience I had in Rise when I played this exact same fashion-first rule set, and in fact where I first came up with the rules for this simple challenge. Now, it does seem true when you look at your guidebook and look at the materials and stuff. Certain materials, ones who in past games might have had a 1 or 3% drop rate, have been boosted slightly, at least in low rank, to as much as 7% instead. But while on paper that does seem to make it easier, it's still pretty low odds and still needs RNG to favor you pretty heavily, and again, it didn't seem to actually statistically affect how many repeat hunts I needed to do on this playthrough. There were also a few examples of special monsters, the Zone Alphas, whose sets didn't actually fully unlock during low rank, so I couldn't make the whole set before moving on. And a couple of cases where I had to fight 2 monsters back to back, leaving no opportunity to craft one before facing the other, so I was kind of forced to break the rule set there as well. But that made this challenge even faster than it would have been, because there were a few sets I couldn't stop and grind out. But again, even with that, this run to the end of low rank and credits roll still took longer than a more casual run through World to its credits, deep into high rank by the way, or Rise's credits at the end of its low rank village. And one more reminder, this was still a fraction of Wild's actual content because this was the low rank content only. Oh, and one more last bit of context, by the way. This was sliding up against judging this game's Day 0 condition compared to World or even Rise's current amount of content after they each had literally years of new quests, new title updates, new monsters, new patches, each. And when it comes to the end game activity, I'm not going to dig into detail on this part as my own experience so far hasn't bitten very deeply into it at all, but if you're curious about it, SD Shepherd, a very well-respected content creator and experienced monster hunter, put up a video yesterday detailing what World and Rise's endgames were like at their launches, respectively. And although his perspective is pretty skewed, especially about Rise, and only really talks about the min-max pure efficiency shit that only a fraction of the player base were playing like at endgame, and certainly doesn't represent the much broader variety of activities I played at endgame, especially in Rise, it does still drive home how much broader and more varied Wild's most basic form of the endgame chase is at, Day 0 compared to the last titles. Now, let's talk difficulty of the game's opening to credits. In short, it is directly in line with the difficulty of World and Rise. Exactly what I predicted. Again, I was dead right about this. In fact, this game is perhaps a little bit more challenging than Rise, really. Might have to wait till I do a replay to be sure about that, but certainly on first impression. My perspective here is as an experienced Monster Hunter player with literal multi-thousands of hours of playtime in World and Iceborne and Rise and Sunbreak, and I have done very recent replays both through World and Rise's base games and their expansions. And when I say recent, I do mean within the last couple of months leading up to Wilds. I played through both games. Playing through Wilds to end of low rank, I never failed a quest. I never triple carted. But I did cart. Twice. Once when a new monster caught me by surprise with a nasty little follow-up to an attack I sloppily mistimed a dodge on, so I was already on the ground and struggling to get up. And once at the final big boss of the story mode. And that was mostly because I forgot to restock, so all I had for healing was 6 regular potions and a health-related mantle. And I still survived for a respectably long time before that single cart as well. Compare this, though, to my completely nude, armor-free, base defense-only recent run-through Rise's low ranks. I carted once on that journey, to the final boss of that section, Magnamalo. And even that was at the very end of the hunt. By the time I got back from the cart, he was sleeping and ready to be trapped. That's how close I was to beating him without a cart. And my most recent run-through base game World, with no special rule sets, just playing very normally, 0 carts. At all. From anything. Oh, and my hunt times were exactly in line with the hunt times I'm getting from World and Rise when I replay them. Like literally exactly the same kinds of hunt times, between 4 minutes and 7 minutes on average. And I'm talking both solo and multiplayer. So the people out there saying that these hunts disappear too quickly and they finish all the hunts in 3 minutes flat, well, good for you. Now go replay the older titles and tell me how those hunt times match up. Because for me, they were exactly in line with expectations. And if you don't believe me, I live streamed almost my entire playthrough of low rank to end credits over the weekend. They're up on the VODs on YouTube here. Go check them out for yourself. But I don't want to hear any more about this game being short or too easy or lacking content ever again. It is simply not true. It is a lie. But of course, I do also think it's fair to say that while yes, Wilds is not a significant challenge for an experienced player, that is, once more, for the last time, very much normal. Go replay the older games and see how easy they feel compared to your first time through, and tell me I'm wrong. I friggin' dare you. It is in exactly 0 ways divergent from the expected experience of anyone, again, with a functioning brain and memory. And anyone who sits out there wishing that the friggin' low-rank hunts should be a big fat challenge to veteran players are suffering from a near-complete cognitive dissonance that I think perhaps might be an indicator of some other severe personality issues that might want to seek therapy for. I'm not being sarcastic here. There's something wrong with you if you have that level of cognitive dissonance. The most serious base game challenge always comes in post-launch updates for the recent Monster Hunter games. In fact, both Rise and World before it, reminder that both these games followed the traditional release schedule, where in the West, traditionally, when we got a new game, it was including the G-Rank stuff, what we call Master Rank these days. If you're comparing these new games with the older games, you have to keep that in mind. There is a significant difference in how they were presented when they arrived in the West. But both Rise and World before it, I'm sure anyone with a functioning brain will remember how much fuss and thrashing and tantrums were thrown about how certain title updates added new monsters, and when they arrived, it brought a wall of screeching about how unbalanced they were, how they were too difficult, too challenging, they were impossible, they were ridiculously hard. And I'm betting sooner or later Worlds will see the same clown show performance from these idiots. Time is a flat goddamn circle, and certain people have ridiculously dysfunctional or bizarrely selective long-term memory and colossal amounts of cognitive dissonance. So again, I was right. It is absolutely time to shut the fuck up about the difficulty and the length of this game. It is directly in line with the experience of the other recent games. Demonstrably so. You can prove it to yourself if you don't believe me. Now, something I never actually made a video on, but I was still annoyed when I saw it more than a couple of pre-release reviews talk about it. The story sections being, quote-unquote, tedious. This complaint usually revolves around the fact that a lot of the exposition dumps happen on little on-rails secret-back slow walks through the maps, often while transitioning to a new area for the first time. I saw people lament how, quote-unquote, boring this was, how slow it was, and how on-rails and locked in it was, and how little control or ability they had to explore while it was happening. I want you all to think about how these exact same kind of lore dumps and story exposition moments or transitional chapter markers were handled in the other games. Either with partially voiced cutscenes at base, where a pile of NPCs stood around a big table and talked at you, or had conversations amongst themselves while you stood nearby, or you had to sit there and click through a big pile of text box dialogue sections with zero interaction, zero player agency, and zero player character responses, contextual or otherwise, at all, except for the occasional camera cut to your character grunting and nodding. Frankly, I vastly prefer how Wilds does it. Much more immersive, much more natural feeling, much more interesting. You can enjoy the reveal of these wonderful new environments as it happens. You can look around, you can even collect materials along the way while it happens. And for the first time ever, you have actual player agency. You are part of the story. You have dialogue choices, actual interactions. Your player is sewn into the conversation, an active role to play. Not just someone who stands around while a bunch of NPCs talk at or around you, but never talk with you. Sure, the dialogue choices here are not exactly the shining example of the best RPGs out there, but they're still there, and it does make a difference, and it makes your character feel like a character, and like you are part of the story. Not just there while the story happens. And doing it like Wilds does, it stops it feeling like the game just suddenly grinds to a halt between hunts while plot happens around the big table or whatever. Instead, the plot unfolds as you move through the world, as you're moving from one area to the next area to discover what comes next. You're talking about it. It is massively superior storytelling. The only problem I foresee with this approach is they're not skippable. So on replays, you're going to have to sit through them again. I'm sure on PC, someone will figure out a mod to skip these cutscenes. Certainly the speedrunners will want to do that. But yeah, for a first impression, for actually telling the story, I really like this a lot better. Right, finally, for this series of rants, the last hot button topic, I guess for now, the look and performance. Anyone who claims this game looks like a PS3 game is a lunatic. Anyone who claims this is a worse looking game than World is a lunatic, or a complete moron at best, or the world's least imaginative troll. Last time I spoke about this, it was with a side-by-side of the old code of the beta, again, almost a year old this code was supposedly, next to the fully updated version of World, maxed out with its HD texture pack and all. Lots of idiots complained about stuff like Wilds having no water physics. Yeah, in the beta code, clearly it's unfinished. We know it was unfinished. We know that for a fact. The devs talked about it. The final game, of course, does have player interactions with water and foliage moves as you brush by it and stuff, things the beta didn't really do. But outside of that sort of nitpicky stuff, the sheer density and complexity of Wild's various environments eclipses World. Just blows it out of the water. Don't get me wrong, World still looks amazing. The coral highlands, even the ancient forests, they look spectacular, especially for an 8-year-old game. But the detail of Wilds is really a step above. And that's without even considering the immensely more complicated and dense amount of life active on every map. It's a huge uptick of the amount of monsters, small and large, that this game can handle simultaneously. And they're all doing their own thing. They're all real feeling in the environment. They're not just standing around and occasionally moving and chewing on stuff and moving from one area to the next. They have behaviors and cycles and patterns. They feel like they're telling a story of the environment. It makes it a lot more immersive. And if all you're doing is looking at the texture on a rock or a tree trunk, looking at the bark texture and thinking, oh, it looks the same as World, you might genuinely be learning disabled. Again, not kidding. If all you're doing in the comparisons is looking at the textures and going, well, that doesn't look significantly better than World's textures did, you genuinely might have a learning disability. But of course, all of this extra detail and complexity and density comes at a price, and it's a heavy price. It is a pig of a game to run that challenges the most popular mid to high-end GPUs of today. And by the way, so was World when it first launched. This is another thing I've made a video dismantling the argument against and showing hard evidence of day one reviews and performance tests of World, even from Digital Foundry, the people we all trust for this sort of stuff. Point is, World, when it launched, was also brutally hard to run and challenged that day's best, most popular GPUs, just like Wilds does. Oh, and hey, by the way, have you checked out World's review history on Steam? See that big red spike right at launch? All those negative reviews piling up? Guess what that was? Well, that was review bombing about the poor performance and server issues at launch. Exactly what is happening with Wilds. Although Wild's server seemed to be way more stable, by the way. I've only had a few connectivity issues. But performance, certainly being review bombed for that. And let's be clear here, it's not unfair to complain about performance issues. But when I pointed out how World's launch was similarly difficult, some people without the cognitive ability of an 8th grader, assumed this meant I was defending Wild's also having poor performance, or excusing it somehow. I got so many comments about that, how I was dick riding for Capcom, or defending this game for having poor performance. That's not what the video was about, goddammit, you stupid bastards! It's so exhaustingly stupid to have this stuff thrown at you, and people refuse to listen and reason and think before they speak. They're so eager just to be angry at somebody. Just embarrassingly reductive reasoning skills. Be better! God damn it. The point I was making is, World became a beloved game and Capcom's best-selling and most popular title in their entire history as a video game company, despite these issues. They didn't stop the game being good. They didn't stop it being popular. They didn't stop it being loved. And guess what? Wilds immediately broke records, and it's already one of Steam's top 5 games of all time when it comes to highest concurrent player counts, beaten only by Counter-Strike 2, of course, Palworld, Black Myth Wukong, and PUBG, for crying out loud. And it beats the likes of Lost Ark, Dota 2, Cyberpunk, and Elden Ring. And we're only at day 3.5, and that is only the PC player base. The numbers on PlayStation will no doubt be even larger than this, and Xbox, well, I'm sure Xbox is helping. Xbox is contributing, surely. So, these claims about the performance challenges making this game quote-unquote fail were of course idiotic. Of course they were. History has already proved this won't stop a game from being popular. People get past it. I tried to tell people about this. I showed them the evidence of World being like this, and they still didn't believe me. The performance issue will, of course, improve over time, just like Worlds did, by the way. But the reality is, it is a tough game to run, maxed out. That will remain true, much like the likes of Cyberpunk before it. There's a reason I used Monster Hunter World for years after its launch as a benchmarking game when I was more regularly reviewing GPUs. Because it was a tough game to run, it made a good game to test GPUs on. Oh, and for the people who keep screeching about RE Engine being bad at open world games, they shouldn't have used it for this open world game. You do realize Wilds is not an open world game, right? Like, definitionally, it is not open world. It's an open field game, but at no point can you access the whole map seamlessly without going through a transitional loading zone. Even if they're very smartly hidden in this game, it is a very old school trick. They are unusually pretty loading corridors, but there is still loading corridors, and this is not an open world game. So debate all you like about the RE engine and its capabilities, but stop calling this an open world game at least. And stop calling it ugly, because it's not. And stop calling it blurry, because it's not, when you can actually max the settings. You can't judge a game from the settings being turned down. All right, nobody calls Cyberpunk an ugly game because you're running it on low settings. All right, you judge it on its best. And for you console players, yep, the upscaling in performance mode is kind of less than ideal, isn't it? It is a little bit softer there, no doubt. I've no idea why they're using FSR 1 for that instead of the more modern choices of FSR 2 or better yet FSR 3, both of which are fully capable of being used on both consoles. And hopefully soon, Capcom will push an update to use the new FSR versions, because it is a really bizarre choice to use such an old one at launch. Just a desperately outdated scaler, and FSR 1 was never good, like ever in any game. Don't know why they went with it. It's really strange choice. But either new option will noticeably improve the clarity of upscaling, so hopefully the update to include it. But at the very least, FSR 1 is better than the shitty PlayStation checkerboarding crap that the beta had. That was just awful. So small mercies, I guess. Finally, I guess I'm not done yet. Finally. There's all kinds of stability issues on PC right now. My second day trying to stream it was cut short by multiple freezing and crashing issues and sound dropping out and stuff like that. Day 3 was much better. 9 hours of stream and only one sound bug that I had to restart to fix. But that was after an entire evening, a very exhausting, tiring evening, the night before, trying a bunch of different things to try and solve the crashing and freezing issues. And no one yet is sure exactly what the problem even is, or problems are, or the best and most reliable way to fix them. There's a bunch of sort of voodoo solutions out there that may or may not do anything. And that's really frustrating, no doubt. Really frustrating. But it's not a forever issue. And I can't name a high-profile AAA game that has launched issue-free, can you? It's annoying that Wilds seems to be quite a bit worse than many recent releases in this respect. But the devs behind Monster Hunter are unusually passionate, and I do have faith they will get it nailed down. We just kind of struggle on for now, I guess. But with all things considered, and acknowledging that we're still in the honeymoon phase, my general verdict of Wilds feels like it's an extremely positive one. I loved playing through the opening story. It was fantastic. It was a lovely experience, joyful, exciting. I was nailed to the screen. There wasn't one monster, new or returning, that was a disappointment to fight. No sign of the likes of the infamously hated Dratidus in World to spoil the early game with an annoying or tedious fight against a crappy monster, or a Kushala Daora type to drive you stupid in the closing chapter of the game. You guys remember your first fight against Kushala Daora in World? Oh my god. Rise Kushala was so much better. Actually, speaking of Rise, there was no Illumitron type either. Talk about another mud bitch. But Wilds was simply one joy-filled battle after another. Every new monster introduced in this generation so far has looked amazing, behaved amazing, has been a fun fight. And even the returning monsters felt good. Even Rathalos, who any repeat player of Monster Hunter has fought various forms of, in various forms and variations and subspecies and whatnot, endless times before. I've no idea what the number is of the number of various Rathalos I've fought, but it's a very large number. But his new form in Wilds was one of the most fun Rathy fights I've had in ages. And that was still only the low-rank one. Wilds comes out of the gate strong and has so much potential going forward. I am very happy with it so far. Which, of course, only makes me more annoyed at the piss-stained dipshits who keep trying to spread lies, misinformation, and ignorance about it. So I guess don't expect me to stop telling people it's time to shut up anytime soon. Because guess what? I was right. I was right, and then I was right again, and then I was right again, and then I was right some more. When I said the stuff I said pre-launch. And I'm still right now. And I'll be right in 4 years' time, when people are calling this their favorite Monster Hunter game ever, and how the new Monster Hunter game is too easy. Because you bet this will bloody repeat itself again. Anyway, thanks for watching. For those of you who stuck with it all and didn't feel targeted by the things I said, I hope you enjoyed that ride. If you did manage to watch this video and you do feel targeted by the things I said and when I called you an idiot and stuff, hopefully this is a learning experience for you and not an excuse to call me names in the comments. Try and learn something. Because I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. And I don't care how arrogant that makes me sound, I am right and righteous about this. And I'm not going to let you forget it. Thanks for watching. I'm Bloody. Thank you to the patrons. And I will catch you next time. I'm going to get this video up. I'm going to get some food in me. I'm going to spend the rest of the day playing some more Monster Hunter Wilds.
Time to go.
Right.